I'm Doug Boyle for SalesLabs. This afternoon we have a gentleman whose career spans sales, sales management, regional management, currently is serving as CEO. This is his third opportunity as CEO for 3 different companies in 3 different industries. Phil Padfield has a wealth of knowledge, experience, and common sense, which has distinguished him throughout his career. Welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Doug.
Let me set the stage here. The practice of letting a rep call out a number and then invoking your manager privilege to make a manager's weighted forecast. What does this do to trust?
There can be a problem with trust if you're effectively second-guessing or changing the forecast of sales guys. There is a kind of inverse law of forecasting which applies in sales teams, and that is where the sales guy who isn't making his numbers and is concerned that he's going to get fired will give you a fantastic forecast for the quarter, and will tell you everything's going to be wonderful. And conversely, the sales guy who is well over his numbers and is doing extremely well will quite often say he's going to have a 0 quarter because he doesn't want to commit. Not necessarily he's sandbagging, but he just doesn't want to commit, or he just feels that he needs to step away from the spotlight. So, the only way you can get around that is really to get into the sales deals with the sales guys and reach alignment with them and really begin to assess, based on your experience of the market, the qualification that they're imposing on deals. And sadly, if you don't do that, you're always going to get those stories, the good news, bad news stories. And the bad news is, hey, the customer isn't going to order this quarter, but the good news is it's going to come in next quarter and it's going to be 3 times as big. Well, guess what? They rarely happen. And guess what? They typically come from the guy who was forecasting the big number, who was scared of getting fired. So, yes, to the second part of your question, yes, absolutely. The only way of actually mitigating that is to have a well-established review methodology, speak the same language, and of course get into the sales deals with the sales guys.
A CEO once said, I know 50% of my forecast is fiction. I just don't know which 50% is fiction. Give us your thoughts about that.
The situation is probably worse than that, and I once inherited a pipeline which was $100 million, and I had a quote of 10 million, and the pipeline was factored at 10%. So I was told, there you go, you've got a 10 million quota and you've already got $10 million more or less in the bag. But of course, 10% factoring on 100 million isn't 10 million, it's 0. And so the problem, if you haven't applied sensible qualification within the deal review process, the problem is going to be much worse than the 50% that the CEO described. Just another point there. This common language is really, really important to me, and it starts at sales methodology, and it follows through with coaching within deal reviews, but it also translates into what you mean when you tell me that a deal is committed. And I don't use, for example, percentages. I think they're useful when you're dealing with high volume pipelines, but when it comes down to forecast accuracy, I have 3 definitions. There's commit, there's upside, and there's pipeline. And commit means I will make this deal happen within the time frame, and I can tell you how much the deal is going to be. And to me, that's a good indicator because he knows what he's selling, and he'll typically know when he's going to get the deal. Upside is, I believe I can make this deal happen. I can't commit yet, but right now there are 1 or 2 variables which are outside of my control, but I believe I can get them under my control within the time frame. And then pipeline is pretty much the same, but you know what? I haven't identified all the variables yet, and I'm not sure whether I can get them under my control. Now, once everybody understands that that's what your forecasting methodology is, or your nomenclature for forecasting, then people really do start getting much more accurate about their forecasting, and they get proud about committing and meeting their commitments.